Lesson number 6 in your leadership journey, and we're going to go fast. This is about how the time frame that you grew up being a leader, how that's affected you. Think about your leadership now. If you had to describe it, what is it? And describe, on top of that, describe the environment that you're being led by. Particularly with COVID that's gone on here, the last 2 years we've been cooped up here, I'm going to say that the leadership, the way you lead is probably more collaborative, probably flatter organization, more transparent. Everyone has some kind of input into it. I think I'm going to be pretty close there. So think about over time. Think about how you grew up in leadership. So now that's where you are today. Think about the first position you had. What was the environment like? What was in vogue leadership-wise, and what were the trends? So you can just think about that for a second when you started. I'm going to back up, and I'm going to kind of put some markers in time so you can say, well, yeah, that's what it was like, or that's what it was not like. I'm going to go back. I know you didn't work during this time, but just kind of post-World War II, what was in vogue at that time? Because some of this has carried forward all the way till now, and I think you're going to see it. What was in vogue then? The great man theory. The great person, the great leader. It's all about the individual. The leaders are born, not made. That person, MacArthur, was destined to be a leader. Dwight D. Eisenhower, Lincoln, George Washington, the great man. And it was man theory too. So many women were not considered to be leaders at that time. So as you move forward, then what did it become? Then it became, what are the traits a leader needs? And they started training individuals, leaders, on traits. What are their traits? Then traits, then behaviors. So leadership training, as you're moving up into the 1960s and 70s, it's about, well, are leaders born, not made? Well, sort of born. Oh, but they need these traits. They need these specific behaviors. Then what they did, once they started doing that training and people started working on traits and behaviors, situational. Oh, what started considering the context? What's the context that they lead? How do you adapt the traits to the context? Manufacturing, big organizations. So now we're going to start moving out of the industrial side of things into the service-oriented and more digital realm. So once we got past that, so let's go into the mid-1990s. So remember, .com boom is going up, mid-1990s, it crashes. James McGregor Burns, his book Leadership, he talks about transactional leadership and transformational leadership. Transactional, I give you something, I pay you, you do work. I pay you overtime, you do more work. I incentivize you, you do more work. So it's a transaction. 2, transformational. Transformational is, now it's about the relationship between the leader and the led. Building relationship, leaders get better, those being led get better because it's a team and they're moving forward, again, taking in more information. So now we're into the late 90s, 2000s. 2000s, what's happened now? Full digital transformation is on. Now we're starting to get into the transformational part is correct. Now it's becoming more, we're going from the individual person. Now it's about the team and the relationship with the team. That's where agile program management started coming in, right? Sprints, get things done. What are requirements? What do stakeholders want? How do we do this? How do we do this in short sprints? Get things done. What kind of input do we need? Who's leading the team through what phase? Now you can see it's becoming much, much more collaborative. We're working together. That's where leadership is going. Till now, the end, where we are now, think about these terms. Well, think about VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That's where leaders need to work. Can one person have all the things they need, have all the knowledge, skills, and abilities to make that happen? No. So that's where now it's about relationships, it's about collaboration, transparency, and flat organization. Still hierarchy, but there's flat organizations with getting things done, and you're hearing from stakeholders. So that's where we've gone over time. I just gave you kind of a quick brief. So think about you and your journey at each of your stops. What was it like? And think about how you're leading right now. How much has where you were how much of that has affected you and your leadership today? I grew up in the 80s is where I started. So there is some of that directing traffic, very hierarchical, and it took a while to transform. those folks who now have grown up in where it's transformed and agile program management, folks are a lot more collaborative. Servant leadership, the leader serves those that they're leading. Much different than the time frame that I grew up. So it takes longer. So you can probably look at someone my age and say, oh yeah, he, she, they're slow to change. What difference did the time frame you have make on your overall leadership?